I'm Andrea, a passionate DEI advocate and consultant on a mission. Join me in each episode as we celebrate diversity, ignite conversations, and craft workplaces and educational institutions where everyone thrives. This podcast is my commitment to making a meaningful impact on the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So are you ready? Let's get Diversifused. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Get Diversifused. I'm your host, Andrea Horton-Mericli, founder of Diversifused DEI Consulting and a passionate DEI advocate and ally. This episode is all about wisdom and the U.S. immigrant veteran experience. My guest today is Asher Wright. Asher originally hails from the island of Jamaica, beautiful island, and is now a proud citizen of the United States. He isn't just any citizen, though. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army, having dedicated 22 of his 25 years in the United States to serving in the military. Asher is the founder of Life-Changing Wisdom and has embraced the role of a wisdom coach, a title he holds dear as wisdom is his guiding value. With wisdom as his cornerstone, he is devoted to serving the immigrant and veteran communities. And that's near and dear to my heart, too, Asher. The question that drives Asher's life is, who do you want to be a hero to? This query has not only guided him through his military service, where he aimed to be a hero to all Americans, believing deeply in their worth and deservingness of his service, but it also steers him now that he's retired. Today, he finds his purpose in addressing the same question towards supporting his fellow veterans and immigrants, aiming to enhance their lives and with meaningful solutions. Asher is an entrepreneur committed to providing four essential freedoms to his fans, friends, and family: the freedom of time, purpose, money, and relationships. Following his journey into the future as he empowers others with his wisdom, proving that the path to empowerment is through building communities and sharing knowledge and support. So welcome, Asher, to Get Diversifused. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Wow, Andrea, congratulations to you for having your show, my friend.
Thank you.
And for seeking to impact and empower other people. And to the guests, you're here because Andrea has been on this journey as far as making an impact in the world through her service. And you've been listening to her share her knowledge and wisdom. And I'm here to do the same thing, share my knowledge and wisdom with you guys. So thank you for your time, my friend.
Thank you so much. And as I said, it's such a pleasure to have you on. I don't know if you know this about me, but my niche in my consulting is helping improve the lives, workplaces, and the lives of immigrants and English language learners in workplaces and the general community. So I worked many years with immigrants and refugees, advocating for them. And it just helped grow my passion for the importance of diversity, inclusion, and belonging everywhere. So as I realized that I had to keep advocating for them because so many organizations and individuals just did not feel comfortable, did not know how, whatever the reason may be, to interact with individuals that were from different countries, may not speak the language as fluently as they'd like or as they're comfortable with. So they kind of shut down. And so it's those experiences that I had the privilege of advocating for my clients just fueled my passion for this service. So with that, tell us about your story. And as an immigrant from Jamaica and U.S. veteran for so long, and one, thank you so much for your service. It's very much appreciated. And many United States citizens don't realize how many immigrants actually are in the United States service. So in all branches, not just the four main ones, but the National Guard and Coast Guard and everything like that. So tell us about your experience and why you became a wisdom coach.
It's interesting. I'm listening to you talk, and often you guys probably think the same way too. We often speak from our niche. You know, we often speak from a niche. We live from our niche. And you're saying your niche is serving those that are immigrants and so forth and so on, right? And it's interesting when sometimes people think about you in business or you being an entrepreneur, like, okay, what is my niche? What is my niche? Oftentimes you're already living a niche. It's the identity that you serve. it's the identity that you recognize in yourself. So my two identities, the two dominant one for me is immigrants and veteran, right? Those two I've lived. So I would never feel like a fraud speaking from those places because I've lived being an immigrant and I live being a veteran. So do you. You live being an immigrant. So you can speak from that place. You can advocate for people in that space because you've lived it. So that's interesting when I'm listening to you. I'm like, oh yeah, you found yours. Because sometimes people struggle with their niche.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you got to niche slap them, you know, like, hey, hold on, you already been living your niche. Like, it's not hard to find it. You know, it's your identity. It's the one that you serve. So if somebody listening right now, like, oh, I'm struggling with trying to find my niche, you're living it. Just think about your identity right now. What is the thing that really, really shaped you? That's your niche. And for me personally, it was the journey of being an immigrant. So I started in Jamaica. I got to the United States back in 1998. 4 months after I got to the United States, I joined the military. I signed up for the army 4 months later because I got my green card 4 months later. So I signed up for the military. And then 8 months later, I was in training. So I just went off. And for 22 years, I've been serving the United States military because the American people was worth my sacrifice. My family was worth my sacrifice. I went on and did it. Now I'm finished. I'm a veteran. So now I'm like, okay, Asher, what do you do now? Go back and I serve my niche because I'm speaking from it. I'm living from it. So that will be my short story for you right now.
Well, thank you so much for sharing it. So what inspired you exactly to be a wisdom coach, and how does
wisdom coach? That question. Okay, let me get to that question. we all have values, and to really understand who you are as a person, you have to really think about your values. So I sit back and I think about the value I want to embody, and the value is wisdom. So I say, Asher, you're gonna be a man of Olympian wisdom, and you're gonna be so wise the world gonna know about you based on your wisdom. And I keep telling myself every day, you're one of the wisest person in the world, Asher. You're the wisest person in the world. So I seek wisdom continually. And the more I embody that state, the more I progress towards that state, the more wiser I get. And then I'm hearing people saying, oh, Asher, you were so wise. That was so wise of you to say. And I started noticing that. So now me embodying that state, other people start recognizing it. And they start seeing me because now I'm making it real. So that's when I say, okay, I'm a coach around wisdom. So like, who are the people I want to coach? People are really looking for wisdom, right? Because now we can connect on the same value. So now people that seek wisdom, that are looking for a lot of it, now I can coach on that because now we can relate, and I can impart on you the things that I've been learning over the years as far as being a wise person, a person of wisdom, a person that value wisdom as their highest value. So that's where it started.
So who are your go-to sort of like teachers and guides for wisdom? Like, who do you go to for answers, or to look for new ways of addressing certain issues that your clients may come to you with when it comes to wisdom and guidance?
Interesting question here. So I have a bunch of dead mentors and a bunch of live mentors because they're books. A lot of them are in books. So some of the people that really influenced me, I'm gonna start. If you heard of the guy named Neville Goddard, Neville Goddard is a spiritual mystic. I study his work. Dan Sullivan, he's a really awesome coach. I study his work. Miles Monroe is a very awesome. He was a pastor from the Bahamas. I study his work. Earl Nightingale, he's another really, really awesome. He's one of those guys that they call him the dean of the person development world because he's the one that started the learning through audio, that audio learning. He created his first audio recording that called The Stranger's Secret back in, I think, the 50s, whatever. It was the first recording on audio and he sold 1 million copies, like first one that did. And then he started that. He's kind of like launched that process. So all of this, the self-help audio stuff, he's the one that kind of like really put that thing on the map.
What was his name again? I didn't hear his name.
Earl Nightingale.
Nightingale. Okay.
Yeah. There we go. I had the pleasure of meeting his wife too, because his wife is still alive. He died, I think, back in the 80s. And I was on a coaching call with her, and she's pretty awesome. She's trying to carry on his work, so forth and so on. So I had the pleasure of meeting her. And I studied the work of Dan S. Kennedy. He's another guy. He's a marketing genius. I study his works. I read all the books. So what I normally do is I just find people that have really good books and I just read all their books.
Okay,
Like if I
cool.
find somebody I like, I look up all their books and I just read them all from the start
Nice.
to the end, right? And that's why I kind of educate myself, because back in 2016 I started this really awesome challenge for myself, was to read at least 100 book a year, 1,000 book in 10 years, right? And I'm on year number 8. So this year, at the end of
Wow.
this year, I should be on year number 8, close on my 800 books. So already for my yearly goal, I'm at 730, no, 743 books so far. Last time I checked. So I've
That's a
been
lot
on
of
that. So
reading.
yeah. That's a lot of reading and listening to books. But it helped me empower myself to really seek the ideas for other people, because oftentimes they were like, Asher, you get so many ideas. I listen to other people. I read other people's book, because right now, like for you, Andre, you might still one day sit down and write on all the great things you've learned about life, so forth and so on. You're gonna put it in a book, and you're gonna like, hey, this is the package of the things I can actually organize for you and give it to you. Because if I sit down with you to try to get everything from you, it probably take me days, weeks, months, years to kind of learn
Yeah.
everything from you. But you're like, you know what? I
Hmm.
put it in a book. I learned that, so I start going in the book. So now book becomes my new mentors. Over to you.
I like that. Yeah, self-education, people don't realize the power of self-education
Hmm.
and continuous education. I mean, education doesn't need to be in a classroom, a formal learning environment. You can educate yourself through the libraries, through
Hmm.
half-price books, or just borrowing books or purchasing books or listening to books on audio. I'm definitely going to look up Nightingale and
Hmm.
look at find his stranger's secret. But yeah, people just don't realize that they can teach themselves and learn from others' experiences. Everybody has a story, and through all the things they've experienced through their life, and they just don't realize how impactful it can be. They may think, oh, it's nothing, it's just my life, but there's so many things that they've overcome as individuals that they just take for granted. They think, oh, it's nothing, but to somebody else, it might be something. It might be, they could learn from it. And um, it's um, it's just so, I mean, a person's experience and autobiography, or it doesn't even really have to be an autobiography. It could just be them talking about situations in their lives, and it's focusing on one certain thing. And yeah, for me, I love John Maxwell. I found him years ago, and I just got hooked. I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, so I read pretty much all his stuff, listened to his videos, and all. And then he got me into to it's not really self-help, but it's I can't remember, self-improvement. And so I'm always in that section in the bookstores, and then you see other sections as well that are somewhat related, and you just like, oh, that seems interesting, and you can always learn from somebody else. We all have a story to tell. We all have things we've overcome, and we shouldn't take it for granted. So I love that you hopefully you write a book as well. So talking about your experiences, because um, I mean, I've had coming from the border town of El Paso, Texas. Originally, I had a lot of friends who were immigrants that didn't have their citizenship yet. They were here legally, but they didn't have their citizenship yet, and they joined the service, and were able to get it through them serving a certain amount of time, which was a wonderful benefit of of um, of serving in the armed forces of the United States. I think that's a great, I wouldn't say perk, but a great benefit for those that are looking for a pathway to citizenship and getting uh, the benefits that all Americans, because there's many people living here for years and years and years that uh, don't have the privilege of receiving benefits of some kind, whether it's retirement benefits or Social Security that they've been putting into because they're working, but they don't have the citizenship status. So um, it's a wonderful way for them to gain that, or their children or something like that. But yeah, sorry, I digressed. I tend to do that in the podcast.
No, but I want to tap into something you said earlier. John T. Maxwell.
Yeah.
He's also on my list of people that
uh,
I read a lot of his books. I don't know if I read all of them yet because he put us a lot of books.
he
But I was
does.
listening to him. I was listening to him have a conversation with it because he kind of gave me some insight into being an author. Because he was saying that hey, I don't have writer's blocks, and the way he does that because he reads a lot of books as well. And then what he does is create these folders, and then he just kind of put ideas in there, and then from there he just kind of really just have stuff to bounce back. I'm like, oh, so I started doing the same thing too for my writing because I wrote 3 books already,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So yeah,
what are you send me the titles of the books? I can put them in at the end of the
yeah,
podcast in
of
the
course.
summary.
Yeah, so but he taught me something. Him and Dan Sullivan taught me something too because I was listening to both of them. And Maxwell taught me about organizing, where I just start collecting ideas. And then Dan
Hmm.
Sullivan, his idea was that he read a lot of Shakespeare because Shakespeare used very 1 or 2 syllable words. So the idea is that you think like a wise person will speak like a common man, right?
Hmm.
And then so what Shakespeare does is he writes very simple stuff. So he started practicing writing Shakespeare stuff with his hand, just handwrite them, and he trained his brain to figure out how to write simple terms like a common person, so people can understand. I'm like, oh my god! So now I'm
Yeah.
starting learning that process. So from John C.
Interesting.
Maxwell and Dan Sullivan, I've learned those tips as far as writing.
Those are great tips, actually. I've heard the notebook thing, but I must confess I have not done it. Especially like the notebook right by your bedstand, because we when we're in our dream state sleeping, a lot of ideas come to us, and when we wake up we remember a lot of them right in the last a minute after we wake up, but as we're starting to move around we forget. So I've heard of putting the notebook and pen by your nights on your nightstand so you can write things down. The And actually that's actually how the woman who wrote the trilogy, what's that vampire one that was so popular uh in the mid like 2008 2000, I can't remember, the Twilight Saga. That's how they were dreams she was having, and she had her notebook by her bed and she just started writing things down that she was dreaming about. I was like, those are weird dreams, but but hey, it made her famous and and rich, and it was just things that she was naturally dreaming about. So we have such creativity and all, and we have to make note of it when we can. So I love the notebook thing that you had said. I think we're gonna start doing that, because every now and then when we're in conversation, oh, we like that, it's something sparks us, but then if we don't write it down, at least for me, if I don't write it down I forget. And so I have you can't see my desk right now, but I have sticky notes all over the place. I'm more of a paper sticky note person. So yeah, so it's always great to write things down. My husband, he used to carry a little notebook pad in his pocket, and with a tiny little pencil, and during the day, and when something came to him, he would write it down like a couple key words, so he could remember it. And 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 he was able to work on things and solve problems he was trying to figure out. So yeah. So you originally came from Jamaica in the 1990s, late 1990s. And so what motivated you to want to originally join the military, and how did your immigrant background shape your experience as a service member?
So, awesome question, by the way.
Thanks.
we Most immigrants, I'm gonna talk about it because I met a lot of them in the military as well,
Hmm.
and oftentimes we join because of benefits and privilege,
Yeah.
status. Because when I first got here, my main goal was status. Right, I came from poverty, came from not having a lot, and I'm like, I got here. I'm like, okay, the hustle is real, the plantation is here, but I want to make a difference, so I joined for that to gain status, and that's a status you can gain the other stuff in life. But most people came
Hmm.
here for status. So also when you join the military, it was a faster process of getting your citizenship too. It takes you like 3 years when I was in back then. I don't know if it's short or not now, but it was 3 years and I can get my citizenship. And I was like, I'm getting that the fastest way possible, right? And there's a lot of people that joined the military because before I got out, they had this program. I think they canceled it now. It was called the Magni program, where they used to recruit a lot of international people. to join the
Oh.
military, and they would get the citizenship. So if you're in college, so forth and so on, you finish college,
Hmm.
but you're not a citizen yet, or you don't have the you don't only have a visa, they will let you in and you serve and you get your citizenship after that. A lot of people join the military for that, but
Yeah.
I think they cut the program out. But it was very,
Oh,
really good. So I have a lot
yeah.
of my troopers when I was in was up part of that program. They came in and they get their citizenship, and it was like, yeah, no, I'm done. I'm getting out. So yeah. But that was
And
one of
then
the
they
big
get their
reasons.
GI Bill as well after that.
They
So.
GI Bill, it depends. So if they either the GI Bill or they get their college loan payoff. So one of those two
Oh,
process. Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
didn't realize the military paid the college loans off if you already had college.
Yeah, so yeah, there are people so they go recruit, like some people, they go recruit for that same process. Hey, you pay your college loan, and then you
That's
just join the
awesome.
military to sign up for it. So they have different programs. It depends on the time of the year. Like back when I was like when we had those war back in the early 2000s, it was
Mhm.
given away a lot of perks to get people in the military. So it
Oh, yeah.
depends on the year and depends what number they're trying to reach. They would give out different incentives for people to join. You just gotta figure out what they are. Like, okay, I'm signing up for that one. Something they give out really big bonuses too to get people in the military. A lot of ways to do to get people in, but that was one of the reasons.
Yeah,
Status.
that's a shame that if they did cut that program off, that's a shame that they did if it did happen. Because
Well, it served its purpose. It was recruitment. It was a recruitment tool. So
okay.
so they do different things to get people in because in Congress said we need the force to be at this number. That means
Yeah,
recruiters gotta have some kind of tool, some kind of incentive to get people in the military. Not
it's
like
true.
recruiting is very hard. It's not easy to
It
recruit people.
is.
Just like if you're trying to do recruiting for a job, it's like kind of hard to find people. Like, oh, so you got to find
Mhm.
incentive for them. There was one incentive, and then you just capitalize on that because, like, oh yeah, really, get the numbers in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great tool, actually. um, so, can you share a memorable experience that highlights the resilience and contributions of immigrant service members in the armed forces?
Man, listen. Because one of the major part of the military that house a lot of immigrants, or we call it sustaining community. Because in the military, I'm gonna give you a story real quick so people understand how important the military is. For example, think about the Navy, right? The Navy, one of their main mission was to really protect the seas, patrol the seas. People understand it, protect the
The,
corporation or the business resources that move on the seas. If not, pirates would actually steal all those containers that get
that's
shipped
true.
from other countries. If it wasn't for the Navy, the pirates would steal them. Like who's
Yeah,
protecting them? But the military.
yeah,
But a lot of people don't understand. Like Amazon package wouldn't show up to your door if there wasn't the Navy on the seas protecting the seas
it's
from
true.
pirates that go steal these shipping containers that are moving across the seas, right? It will get
And
stolen.
yeah,
But they don't
and
you don't
the
see that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
so
ahead.
that's one of the big thing. But as far as immigrants in the military, man, we bring a lot of richness because culturally we have motivated a lot of people, help them see stuff differently. Because if it wasn't for the immigrants, a lot of time the U.S. right? Just think about it. The U.S. goes to a lot of countries. They
Hmm.
need immigrants that from those places to help translate, to help connect to the community. So they will recruit people from the place they fight, like Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever. They recruit people from the same location because those people go back to that same location and help communicate, have a conversation with that
Yeah,
local population. So
yeah,
instead of you hiring other interpreters, you got those folks in the military already from that same location, right? You got people that understand culture, they're different,
hmm,
understand foreign countries because they're from a foreign countries. So just imagine all those things. That's what immigrants bring to the military. That
yep.
conversation, that communication, that community building, because we're international folks, so to speak, right? So we help create that bond. So a lot of times that's the thing we bring to the force
I
is the
love that.
international perspective.
I agree. And as you were talking, so earlier I said I worked with a lot of immigrants and refugees, but I worked with individuals with all different types of ways they got their green card. So SIVs, special immigrant visas, and all. So there were. I did work with people who were from Iraq or Afghanistan and Bangladesh, and who were interpreters for the U.S. military. They were citizens of that country, and they knew enough English or had very good English uh, to be interpreters and translators between governments, between for citizens, whatever they may be. But a lot of people don't realize that it's a dangerous job in some of these countries. Many of these for not just for that individual, but for their entire family, because they can get become targets, and so it takes some brave souls to do that. And to something that you were saying earlier, it's because they know it's that it's going to the incentive is it's going to they get a green card to come to the United States. Not just them, but their family can come to the United States and have the opportunity for a safer and better life, so they can live out, and work hard and work towards their dreams, something they may not have access to anymore in the country of their origin, because of war or whatever it may be, severe poverty in the country, whichever country it may be from. But there was some stories that I heard from my clients that just like mind-boggling. I wish more people could experience even the stories that these individuals can talk about, their experiences, their struggles, the dangers, the tragedies, for a lot of the tragedies, the horrific tragedies in many cases, of things that they witnessed. I'm not going to go in, but it's just into detail, but it's just people don't realize, many people in United States citizens don't realize the power and the positive impact immigrants have in the United States forces and in the communities at large. They have positive impact in the economies for the most part as well. Once they come to the United States, a lot of like my clients would start businesses and then hire on U.S. citizens and all, and it's a lot of people just don't realize that. And I'm going off tangent again. I apologize, but it's just coming. All these memories are coming back.
It's called passion. It's called
Yeah,
passion. You just gotta figure out how do you really translate that, or just kind of transfer that information to other people. And oftentimes it's the real deal. Here's something I would listen to you talk, right? And immigrants, we're like the pioneers of the world. Because you go to a new country, what happened? You're very ambitious, like very ambitious. That means you're gonna pursue a lot, massive ambition, because guess what? You left your family back home, and you gotta come here. You gotta provide for them, provide for yourself. So you're gonna be working very harder than most people because you're trying to make a difference. Sometimes when people recognize that, some people take advantage of you, and some people, drag you through the dirt because they don't know you have the papers. You don't have papers. You're not legal, so forth and so on. But you just gotta work at it, work hard enough to know that, hey, this is gonna be temporary. I'm only gonna be here for so long because I'm gonna get my papers, get my status right, and after that, fuck you, motherfuckers, right? Now I'm legal. You know what I'm saying? So oftentimes people go through some stuff, but they just do it temporarily because they know, hey, eventually it's gonna be over. I'm gonna get my status, get my papers, so forth and so on, and I can work legally, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So those people, I see them, I have empathy for them, right? Compassion for them, because I know how it feels. Because my people come here, some come here legal, some come here illegally, and I see what happens to them when they get here without papers and how people treat them, and what they gotta deal with, what they gotta bear, because, hey, I'm not in the right status, so no, I know what you can call. You can call the authorities on me, and I get sent back home. My family, all of that stuff happens. So I can relate to your story.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I mean, even those that come and claim asylum, I mean, they have to work under their table because the time they put their application in, they have to wait a whole year before they can apply for a work visa. And it's like, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, so it's like they're struggling to find ends meet to provide for their families. And the reasons why they left their country are because nobody wants to leave their country of origin, where they're originally from. But they leave for various reasons. And a lot of it has to do with safety and all, but it's I worked with a few asylum seekers, and it is, as you said, horrible the way they get treated. They're here a lot, so asylum seekers are here legally, but they can't work legally for a whole year plus until they get their work permits. So it makes no sense. But yeah, and I wish there was more compassionate and empathetic people in the world. Um, and it's a shame that a lot of times empathy and compassion don't display themselves until it becomes personal to that individual, until they experience something that to where they can actually understand. And
Here's the thinking. I was thinking about it a couple of days ago. You know, we are all immigrants
yeah.
to planet Earth. We all immigrants to planet Earth. We all show up here, different places we landed, right? But we are immigrants. Like we're immigrants here. We're aliens. They say we aliens are immigrants. All of us are immigrants to planet Earth. Came here, we leave. So oftentimes because of borders, we're like, oh yeah, you're not you're not authorized to be on this side of the border. Well, really? Who put those borders up?
Yeah, humans.
Yeah. Yeah, because of status. Right? Okay, you can't
Mm-hmm.
come over here because you don't have the same status, which is cool. But guess what? We pioneers, right? We trailblazers, right? We're gonna go there. We're gonna break on new barriers. We're gonna go to new places because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Go see the world because I wanted to see the world too. But I just happened to get lucky with the military. It was able to take me a lot of places to see the world. But
Oh,
oftentimes people
thank
want to go
you.
experience something different, and I and I,
Mhm.
and I and I empower those people the same way. Like, go do it, man. Like, you don't need permission. You need to ask somebody permission. But guess what? Get your papers, get there, and get legal. Get your status, and then go enjoy that
Mhm.
place.
Yeah.
It might be hard at first when you first started because guess what? You gotta build yourself from that first start, from underneath that first
Mhm.
start. Once you get from underneath that first start, now you got the power to say, "Hey, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm gonna do this," right? But oftentimes you
Yeah.
gotta keep saying yes to certain things you want to do because you don't have the status. But when you get the status, then no becomes your new flag. No, I'm not doing that. So
Mhm. Yeah. I love that. That encouraging other people to go to other countries, because it also gives them the immigrant experience, the expat experience, um, and living and working in another country. It's very eye opening, because and as U.S. citizens, our experience is a little different living and working abroad, but because for us, English is the universal language of business. So there's usually people that speaks a little bit of English, but in all countries. But it's it's always good to, at least to me, to experience a different culture, and as an immigrant, and because it gives you some idea of the struggles and challenges that um, immigrants in the United States need to face.
mm.
Um, but
you mentioned where you're from.
Mhm.
Where you originally from? You
I'm
mentioned it
actually
earlier.
I'm from Texas. My mother's a Mexican immigrant from
Okay,
Veracruz.
okay.
Yeah, so my
Mm.
dad was in the army actually, so I'm a military brat, and
Ah,
so I we got to move around a lot, and see different things, and experience different cultures, and food, the wonderful foods, and just
so now I see
go
where your
ahead.
passion comes from. Mm. Okay.
Yeah, because my mother actually came to United States when there were no ESL classes. Um, she came originally was going to come, was being brought over illegally by my grandmother, but ended up coming over legally for I'm not going to say how, but they did come here legally, and she was put into school where an English a native English class, because there were no ESL classes. And at that time, they were punished if they spoke their physically punished if they spoke their language, their native language. So it really made a lot of introverts out of extroverts that who were originally extroverts. But it also caused a lot of that generation to not teach their native language to their children. So because they saw it as uh, unnecessary, or like things like they were in that mentality. So there's a lot of my generation who were raised by immigrants like my mom that came from that time, who are not native speak or who are not fluent in their parents' native language, and it's a shame. It's a shame. So yeah, but but that's my story. And
Thank you for sharing it.
yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So let's talk a little bit about equity and veteran support systems. What progress have we made towards ensuring equitable support for all veterans, regardless of their background or immigrant status? Do you feel, I should say?
Equity. Okay, here we go. Here's my new purpose right now, which I'm working on. This might be able to address your question.
Okay.
So now I'm focused on immigrants and veterans, right? How do I share this story? Help them find empowerment in their own past, their own history. And it's to run book projects. So I'm working on multiple authors' books where I bring veterans and immigrants together to kind of write their story out. And then we kind of like package that and share it, because what I realized that the more we empower these folks, so I know what a book does for a person. Like if you can sit down and organize your ideas and put it in a package, in a container, and say, this is my story. And then other people are like, well, let me read it, let me understand it. It causes that person to feel a lot more valuable. And he had done that for me with other people I work with, right? Once you start organize your ideas in a container and say, this is it, it makes a difference. So now I'm like, okay, you've had an experience in your past that you need to share. It just so happens that maybe because of your language barrier or so forth and so on, you might not able to explain it the proper way people understand it. So I figured out how to really organize people's story and sharing them. So now I'm all about organizing story and sharing, collect stories directly at life changing wisdom, right? That's my thing. So now I get to listen to your story. Okay, we sit down, we organize in a way that people can follow it, and then we share it. And that empowers you and other people like, oh my God, I just experienced your story, Andrea, because I didn't know what you went through, but now I know. And your past, your history is very valuable because now you've explained something to me that I've never seen or experienced in my life. But now because of you, I experience it through your work, through your writing. And that's what I do right now. So I do that for immigrants and veterans, organize the story and sharing it.
That's awesome. Yeah, as you said, it could be very impactful, empowering, just to get it on paper, actually, just to get it out and
out of your head, out of your heart, and on paper. Yeah,
exactly. And you don't have to share it with the world if you don't want to. You can just keep it for yourself. But if they choose to share it with the world, it could be empowering. And motivational for somebody else, and someone can relate. There's at least one person out in the world that will relate.
I'm on a mission to share it.
That's awesome.
I'm on a mission to share it. Yeah, I'm on a mission to collect it and share it.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's
awesome.
my goal. Yeah.
And I'm gonna start writing things down too, because you've motivated me to to start writing like little things down, because it's like there's so many things that I've experienced and I want to say, but I don't get it down on paper. And I've always wanted to write a book. I just didn't know where to start. But
okay.
But okay.
Here's 5 easy ways I'm gonna help you, because this is what I kind of organize my entire process around, my coaching process around.
Okay.
So it's around these 5 themes. Your first time experiences. If you can sit down throughout your day, think about your first time experience that really impacted you. You write those down. And you can write down what those are and what you learned from them. Then you go back into your failures. The things that you failed at before that you overcome, that made an impact, that you transformed from, you write those down. Then you look at your fears, the things that you used to fear, or maybe you currently fear. You write those down. And what you learned from them. The lessons you learn from them. Same thing, needs, the things that you need to think, do, or feel that you need to start doing. I need to start thinking about this, I need to start feeling this, I need to start doing these things. Those future oriented, right? You write those down. And then last thing, victories. The things that you have accomplished, you have achieved, you've been recognized for, you get to reinforce those victories in your life. If you sit down throughout the day, those are 5 containers that most of our stories are trapped in. We just gotta go sit down now and go back into like, okay, what was some of the first time experience I've had? Oh, I remember when I first came to this country. That's a first time experience. What was the experience like? You write that down. When you met the first person that really changed your life, right? The person that, hey, stood, like looked out for you, protected you when you get to that new community because you didn't know anybody who that person, that first time experience. You write that down, right? And you start sharing those things, organize those things, and the less you've learned from them, the impact it had on you. Now you have something to tell people. And from there, you feel a lot more empowered. Your story is there. We just gotta think about it. You might forget it because you haven't thought about it enough. But now, go back and think through those 4 themes. I mean, those 5 themes, and you can like, oh my God, my story is rich. I have a rich past. So I would encourage your listeners to do that, and they're gonna like, wow, now life becomes so much valuable. My past becomes so much valuable because this will happen, right? If the past that you have, you devalue, depreciate it, you lower the value of it, you're gonna do the same thing with your future. Because if I give you a new future and you move it to the past in a place where you hold your story, and that past, that place you hold your story is a place that you don't value, everything that you earn, you gain from going into the future, you're gonna put it in a place that you don't value. So you gotta learn to value the past, the location that your story, your information, story, your history at. And once you start appreciate, that means the value goes up. Once you start doing that, now everything that you've earned and gained in the future is gonna go up in value now because your past continuously increase in value because you appreciate it. And that's been a life changing for me. So I know it's going to change people's lives to listen to that.
You are a wisdom coach. I love that. I wrote those things down. Thank you or typed those things down as you were saying them. So thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely work off those themes. So thank you. You may see a book from me next year. You never know.
You know what? I'm gonna hold you to that, Andrea. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay.
And if you need help, I'm here. I'm here to kind of,
thank you so much.
Unlock. So because oftentimes when we're on this journey of like trying to write stuff, people talk about writer's block. It's real for some people because it's kind of hard to write thoughts out. But it's easy to write about things that happen to you using those five containers. It's not gonna be a blockage now because you're writing about something that you've already experienced. If you're trying to write about an essay or some kind of course you're taking about whatever, it might give you writer's block. But your own story, your own history, there's no writer's block there. And oftentimes when we start out, we talk about like you speak from your niche, you coach from your niche, you speak from your niche because you're speaking from what you've experienced, your identity, right? You speak from that place, and you find people because people identify with an identity. An identity just mean a community, right? Oh, immigrant community. You can talk to those people all day.
Yep.
You can talk to the veteran community all day. You can talk to people from your country all day, like, oh, my Jamaicans. I'm Jamaican. Automatically, we can start talking, have a conversation because we can connect to that same identity, right? That's a niche too. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, I have a few Jamaican friends, and it's I love it when they start talking together because it's like the language changes. It's like they're still speaking English, but it's the dialect of like they're from Kingston area, but so it's like and you're like, what are they saying? But it's English. It's just they're that region's dialect. So and slang and neighborhood terms, so that they grew up learning. I love my Jamaican friends. But let's continue on to inclusion and representation within the military. What initiatives, or policies within the military have been successful in promoting inclusion and representation of diverse service members? So you already mentioned some of the recruiting strategies with the perks and benefits. But is there anything else that you found in your long tenure there in the military were successful in promoting inclusion and representation?
If you think about all of these, like for example, like the gay policy, all those stuff, right? Military adopted a lot of those before a lot of corporations did. Like everything that the United States community is trying to take on, a lot of time the military, they come up with it first. Like military has been a very experimental location for a lot of these policies that the United States trying to put defected. They start with the military because that's one organization that's built on dictatorship. That means they can dictate it, right? They say this is gonna be the new policy, we put it out, everybody gotta follow it. They gotta adopt it. So the military has been a very experimental place. And it's also a very good melting pot, right? It's one of the only places that I've been in that I see so much diversity and so much inclusion is in the military. Because guess what? When the bullets start flying, it doesn't matter what color or creed, whatever, that's gonna be the guy that's gonna protect you. And guess what? All that stuff for the door. When I love this guy's quote. It was like when you're starving, guess what? No longer religion or certain stuff in life. It doesn't matter anymore because you need food, right?
That's
Just
true.
like when bullets are flying around you, guess what? All those stuff you might be prejudiced about, no longer the case. The guy next to you is the guy that's going to support you. It doesn't matter what color it is. So the military is very inclusion, and I saw that. I'm like, that's one thing I was proud of the military with, is they're very
That's
inclusion.
awesome.
I mean, even though in that community, there's people that still have their prejudice stuff, so forth and so on, but the policy supports you, and if you fight hard enough, they will uphold the policy. Some
And
people
would you say that
might get
that's
away with
also
it.
gender wise too?
Everything, yeah. All those stuff, yeah. They passed that policy military and they went for it. So it's very
Awesome.
inclusive, very inclusive. Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear because oftentimes like with the the news they put out what's going to bring up ratings and also we often only hear the negatives when it comes to anything, not just the military but the police and everything, that we only hear the negatives. We don't hear all those positives.
I'm not
And
sure it's on mine or your hand, but
I'm sorry, can
no, I
you
was
say it
saying
again?
that there was a disconnect. I don't know. We just lost
Oh,
like kind
oh,
of
I'm so
signal. Yeah,
sorry.
but
Okay. So I was saying that I'm so glad you talked about that because oftentimes like the community at large only hears the negatives because of what the news portrays. The news portrays what's going to give them ratings, and that's not just for the military, but that's for the police and the general news at large. You don't
that's why I
hear
don't watch
all
the
those
news.
wonderful things. Yeah, and I try to look at many different channels, and I find the news stations outside the United States. And I apologize for anybody who's a journalist or anything, but who may be listening. But I find the Al Jazeera and Rutgers and things like that. They are more nonpartisan, and they give all sides and everything. And so when I watch news, I tend to veer towards those channels, but I do listen and read all different types because you want to make sure to not just focus on one outlet because that's their version. They're so you want to make sure to have a diverse array of inputs for where you're getting information, so you can and that's even like when you're meeting someone for the first time, you want to make up your own mind. You should be making up your own mind for the most part when you're meeting somebody. Everybody to me starts with a blank slate. Like as a former teacher in low income schools, I often heard I would be getting students in my classes, and teacher my coworkers would say, oh, he or she's they're a bad egg, they do this and this, like what? It's like and I would not listen to that. I treated every student as a human, as they wanted, as they should be treated. And I actively listened to the student and actively observed the student, because you don't know what, and this is for anybody in the community, you don't know what may have happened to them earlier that day, what their home life is like, what their experience, you don't know if they ate breakfast that day or didn't. There are reasons why people act certain ways, and we shouldn't, as humans, we shouldn't, and we tend to do this, but we shouldn't stereotype and assume the worst, about somebody. And it's the same for the military and immigrants coming to the United States. We stereotype and we assume the worst. And most of the time it's not the case, and so yeah.
Here's something that most of your audience will understand. Like, intelligence is not tied to the English language alone. And oftentimes when you go to a place and people are like, oh, you don't speak the language, oh, that means you're an idiot. No. Like, intelligence is not tied to English language. We understand that, hey, you gotta learn to communicate in this language, but it doesn't mean I'm not smart and I'm not intelligent. It's just that I don't speak this language right now, but I'm learning it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if I'm speaking Spanish and another language, guess what? I know more than you being born in America the whole time. You only know one language, right? But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, I remember the judgment I used to get when I first moved here because my accent was very strong. Like he would talk more when Jamaican was speaking, it was like a whole new language. So the big challenge was when I was in the military, they were like, "Oh my God, Asher, what did you just say? Can you say that again?" I used to mess with my self esteem a little bit because they're like, "Oh my God, I gotta repeat myself again. I gotta repeat myself
Mm-hmm.
again." Like they think I'm an idiot because I don't explain what I'm explaining. But it was just that I just couldn't speak English like I used to because in Jamaica they taught us English, but we
Yeah.
speak something else, and I didn't really value the speaking of English the way they speak in England and America because in Jamaica we just speak that. But when I moved to America, I'm like, oh my God, I need to really, really like focus on speaking straight
Yeah.
English now. So I had to learn that thing. I pretty much like feel like I was learning English again because you didn't really value it the same way to speak it the way other people interpret it in America and in England.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
I
I
went to that
agree.
state.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it. I believe it. And when I moved from Texas to Pennsylvania, so in Texas, there's a lot of immigrants. So people didn't shut down when they heard an accent. But when I moved to Pennsylvania, um, I felt like I was moving back in time to a certain extent. People shut down when they hear an accent. Like my husband, he's Turkish, and to me, he has a very slight accent, very slight. But he's still self-conscious about it, because people shut down. And like what did in like they'll look at me, what did he say? So he's speaking English, listen, and when I would work with immigrants and refugees, referring them over to other community-based organizations for different services or assistance, they would often come back to me. And I was like, well, what's going on? They're like, oh, nobody's contacting me. Nobody's reaching out to me. I haven't heard anything. And it's like, I'm like, what? So I would go with them, and it was the very first person they saw was almost
Up
ignoring
again.
them and talking to me. Yeah, it's so yeah, I understand. It's like they feel stupid, but as you said, a lot of them know two, three, sometimes four languages, and they're learning English at the same time, or they're already speaking English, but they're not fluent yet. But and they just have their strong accent because um people don't understand. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand that um when your native language is different, is not English. It doesn't matter what your native language is, but when you're trying to speak a different language, the muscles that you have to use in your throat and in your mouth are different. You have to so it takes time um to minimize the accent and to oh, did I lose you, Asher? Can you
Yes,
hear
you
me?
did. Yeah. I lost you after you mentioned your husband speak your Turkish husband and in Pennsylvania. That's why you lost. I lost you.
Oh man, I wonder why. Yeah, because
Hmm.
your screen went to the okay. So I was saying that a lot of people in the United States don't realize like when you are learning another language, it doesn't matter if your native language is English and you're learning another language, or your native language is Spanish or Chinese, or maybe Mandarin or something like that, Arabic, and you're learning English. They don't understand the muscles used in the throat and in the mouth are different in no matter what language you're learning. So it takes time to train those muscles. And sometimes you can never really fully train the muscles because you grew up speaking your native language, and so there's a lot of times there's always going to be a slight accent, and it takes a lot of time to minimize the accent, and it's just so frustrating when people shut down when they hear an accent, and it's and they do make you feel like you're dumb and all, and like why are you in this country if you don't speak English? And actually the United States does not even have a native language. I mean not a language, but legal language or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. An official language. There we go. An official language. There's nothing on the record that says it's English because we're a melting pot of immigrants from all over the world. So that's one thing that makes America unique, which isn't as unique anymore now that there's so much ease in travel, and with the EU being across many nations, there's a lot of other countries that are melting pots now too of many immigrants. So we as people just need to be empathetic and understanding and patient, and help help our language learning friends, no matter what country we're in, to help improve themselves. Because it's been my experience that when there's a language learner, like, oh, it's they're okay with you saying with correcting them, like, oh, it's pronounced this way, and you're like, oh, thank you. They, because they want to make sure that they're pronouncing something correctly, like, or this idiom means this, this expression means this. They appreciate that because they're learning. They want to become more in sync with everybody. So in the country that they're currently living in. But yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't know why we cut out. I didn't realize that you had cut out. So thank you for letting me know. So one last question. When it comes to transition challenges for immigrant veterans. So what are some of the unique challenges immigrant veterans may face during the transition from military to civilian life?
That's the biggest problem right now for everybody.
I know. Not just immigrants, it's veterans in general.
Yeah. It's always identity switch. So I'm gonna use the veteran for example. So you join the military, you go in there, you get conditioned based on your value, the principles, and the rules, right? You only get conditioned by those things, and you work on those system for a long time, condition and indoctrinate on those system, and then once you finish, you gotta go back to civilian life. No, you go back to civilian world to whole different rules, principles, and value system, right? No, you gotta switch identity because now you've been taking on the identity of whatever they indoctrinate you, condition you into. Now you gotta switch over the identity. It's very difficult to switch back over. And that's why a lot of people have issues with, like, oh, how do I fit back in? Yeah. Right? Because here's the thing, when you go into military, they condition you, but you have a community, right? You have a community that are people that think the same way. So even if you go in, you're relatable because you're conditioned into a community. And that community supports you through that identity change, right? But when you go back in the civilian world, what's the community that's going to support you with that new identity now? Yeah. You don't have it. And that's the biggest challenge for anybody. Just like you are an immigrant, you move to a new place, right? You gotta condition that new identity, and you don't have a community, and it becomes very hard. So I realize how important community is when you make identity change, because identity change takes you out of feeling like this is you to something like, oh, this is not me anymore. Like who am I now? Because you're in a new place, new culture, new community, but that identity doesn't fit you. So that's a big challenge, the identity shift. That's the biggest challenge. And oftentimes some people can't do it, and they start drinking, they start abusing drugs, they start whatever, right? Because now, this is another thing about military folks. Like, let's imagine this. Imagine you're in this organization, and you go out there and you take a couple of people for that organization, right? And then when you finish, you gotta live with, man, I took a couple lives, and I'm trying to process that information, process that me. Oh man, am I worthy of living because I take a couple people's lives? And then you're trying to find yourself back into that space to live with that thing that you've done. Yeah. And that becomes very difficult for some people. So a lot of like immigrants, veterans that are done combat, have done a lot of things. It's very hard for them to cope with back in society. Like, oh, I'm at work living because I've taken a couple lives. It makes it hard for them. So a lot of them went to drinking, like a lot of substance abuse, and they go into drugs, stuff like that, medication stuff, and that just takes you off path, and then you just like losing yourself. And so that's the hard part, the identity switch. To make it simple, switching identity. Yeah,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of people do not realize that that's a large part of it. A lot of people think in the general community that have never been a part of the United States Armed Forces or any armed forces, that they think that, oh, it's just because they're used to being told what to do all the time. They have to follow orders. They have a strict schedule. And it's hard because now they have nobody telling them what to do once they leave. So they think that's all it is. But you brought up such a very important point, which is like there. I mean, pretty much almost every veteran. There's been wars throughout this whole. Every decade has its war. There are many veterans that are leaving or have left the military that have taken lives, and civilian lives sometimes, and not military, other military from other countries, but civilian lives, and it does take its toll, because at least when you were in the military, you were like, okay, this is my job. I am following orders, and then it's a huge transition, and that's where PTSD comes from. All those things that you had said as well, how they try to coping mechanisms. So it and they don't know who they can go to for support, to get help, and some of them don't even realize that that's what the underlying cause of all their substance abuse issues are, or whatever they may be feeling, or how they may be coping. And there are some people that don't want to talk about it, and they bottle up, and that's the worst thing you can do for anybody, not just veterans, is to not talk about it, because that's when you have a nervous breakdown, or it just explodes one day, and so it's very important. And I don't know, does the military give resources, community resources to veterans as that they can reach out to as they're leaving the military?
Oh yeah. So the support system for the veterans is there. It's there.
Okay. Yeah.
It's there. So it's the VA provide a very, very good support system for the veterans.
Okay, good.
I mean, I wish immigrants and other people in other job, but they leave you have a support system. So it's there. It's the thing. Here's the thing. Even though you have a support system, some people, it's very hard for you to use something that you never used before. Because maybe pride, maybe certain kind of thing, because a lot of us, we're very prideful. Like I'm going to tough it out. But then you're like, oh, you got to go into this system to do this. Makes you feel like a victim. Nobody in the military want to feel like a victim. None of them, right? They're like, oh no, I've been a victor most of my time. And used to me, I go into the system that make me feel like I'm a victim. They don't want to do it. So it's to really reframe your mind. It's like, okay, I gotta go take on this. I gotta go look for the support from these people for these things, for me to really like cope or switch my identity again. So a lot of times that's the biggest challenge. It's not like the system is not there. It's there. The tools are there. It's like sometimes it's how you think about the tool and how you gotta feel about using the tool, or going to that space like, I don't want to do that. And they resist, they hold stuff in, they don't talk about it. And that's become the big challenge.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So for our listeners who may be veterans out there, or thinking of going to the military and all, I will be putting a list of up the VA, but also other resources out there. So if you have any friends or family that are veterans that may be struggling, you can support your friend, family member, or colleague by maybe helping them get connected if they want. But as Asher said, it is sometimes the person that's holding themselves back from reaching out to these organizations because of pride and not wanting to feel like a victim. And sometimes it just it'll take time, but just be there for your veteran friends, your veteran family members. Be that shoulder, be that ear, be that emotional support system, because as Asher said, you never know what they're not telling you. So, and we want to make sure that we value them as much as we did when they were serving our country. So, yeah. So, Asher, I know we're a little over time, but how can someone get a hold of you if they want to connect with you for you to be their wisdom coach, or if they just want to connect with you online in some way, to have you as a speaker, or at their conference or whatever it may be?
Oh, it's very simple. I'm building my social media presence now. I've been retired for almost 2 years, so I'm building my social media presence. So on Instagram, it's asher.ra.sta. And my website is lifechangingwisdom.com. Just that. There's no www in it, right? So it's just lifechangingwisdom.com.
Okay.
If you search for that, you should be able to find me. And that's my website. You can link me up there. But definitely on the social media platform, Instagram, big time. And Facebook is Asher Wright.
And Facebook. Okay. And what about LinkedIn?
I am Asher Wright on LinkedIn. So I'm still getting used to LinkedIn because LinkedIn is there's so many platforms, right? It's kind of hard to keep up. So, but I'm definitely on Instagram a lot more than and on cool. Facebook. I'm on Facebook, and Instagram a lot more than other platforms, but I'm getting there.
Okay. Then for our listeners, I will have Asher's contact information from how he suggested to get a hold of him on the last slide of our podcast today. So before we leave, let's talk about some key takeaways. We celebrated immigrant contributions. We explored the resilience and commitment of immigrants in the United States Armed Forces, highlighting the enrichment of military ranks through diverse cultural perspectives. We talked about equity and veteran support. We discussed successes and progress towards equitable support for all veterans, inspiring further efforts to ensure inclusive access to benefits and recognition. We talked about inclusion and representation. We showcased the achievements of diverse service members and inclusive policies within the military, emphasizing certain roles in DEI when it comes to DEI. And we talked about transition challenges, which as Asher made sure to emphasize, is for all veterans, not just immigrant veterans. All veterans have experienced transition challenges from military life to back to civilian life. So we focused on successful reintegration. We talked about some stories and the unique skills immigrant veterans bring to civilian life, addressing the challenges they may face during the transition process. Some possible next steps for our listeners: advocate for equity. Educate yourself on the challenges faced by immigrant veterans and veterans at large, and advocate for equitable support systems and policies. Support veterans and immigrant veterans. Seek out organizations and resources that provide assistance to veterans during their transition to civilian life. Celebrate diversity. Recognize and celebrate the contributions of immigrant service members to the U.S. Armed Forces and society as a whole. And learn and engage. Continue to learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts within the military and beyond, and actively engage in conversations and initiatives that promote inclusion and representation. So that is it for our show today. Please stay tuned for our next episode as well. Remember, our episodes are launched every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. This episode will be launched on March 28th. Which is Thursday, March 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you, Asher, for being our guest today. It was a pleasure talking with you about not just the immigrant experience, but the veteran experience, which is so important. So thank you so much for being our guest today on Get Diversifused.
You're welcome, Andrea.
So with that, I will let our listeners go. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Go out there and make a difference. And as always, for more strategies on building inclusive workplaces and communities, check out Diversifuse. We're here to guide you on your DEI journey. Make sure to visit our website at diversifused.com and follow us on social media for the latest happenings, blog posts, tips, and events.